The idea for Mount Airy Learning Tree came when I met a woman at a conference who was doing exciting things through Manhattan, Kansas. She just had this community learning education thing that just sounded terrific. And for a couple years I was out in Kansas, so there I learned even more, and I was on the board of this organization helping people create what they called then free universities. And when I came to Mount Airy, when I returned to Philadelphia, I saw that that idea would be perfect for Mount Airy, that it was a community in and of itself, and that people sharing information with each other would just work well here, because there were a lot of people who had information and a lot of people who loved learning. And so I started talking about it with East and West Mount Airy neighbors in 1980 and put together courses, and we came out with our first little catalog in 1981. And at that point, it was just a couple of printed pages that we mailed directly to everyone in Mount Airy, which was unique. No one else was doing that. No local organization was doing that kind of direct mail. And we had, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20 courses, and we got 125 students in that first just announcement, here we are. So people, it's a small group, but that's the kind of people who had faith that this little sheet meant that something was really going to happen. And I think I started it, or what I discovered as I did it or began to feel, was that there's just a very joyful aspect of people getting to teach and people getting to learn. And we got people teaching who had never thought of themselves as teachers before. We purposely aimed for young people and often coupled them with older people so they'd have some backup. So our first computer course was taught by a retired computer person and a junior high school kid. And I taught a course on Wonder Woman with a 10 or 12-year-old child. And so we tried to integrate ages as well as the whole rest of the diversity in our community. And it's just taken off since then. I mean, from 125 to what it is now is astounding. So I think one of the benefits and values of Mount Airy Learning Tree has been that it allows people to be their best side, that there's an awful lot going on in the world that is not the best that we can be, but when you're teaching and learning, you are your very best. And I think that's one of the, within Mount Airy Learning Tree, that's kind of its mission, is to bring out the best of all of us in the neighborhood. Or in one of the pleasures is that the definition of neighborhood has expanded, and Mount Airy Learning Tree has drawn people from all over, and I think it's now fairly known within the city. It used to be that Mount Airy Learning Tree built up gradually over the years, recognition within the community, but I think now within the city people have heard of it. And it draws from New Jersey and Delaware and elsewhere that people will come. And it's set up imitators in other states, little baby, maybe baby bushes or something. And I do think it's that joy of learning and the pleasure of finding out something new that is exciting to the learner, and it's exciting to the teacher because they sometimes didn't even know that they knew something. Often with Mount Airy Learning Tree, a good teacher is someone who's recently learned something because they're really excited about sharing it with others. The combination of people who just learned it and people who know it off the back of their hands is an exciting combination. I think we never know the kind of benefits that it's going to have. You can never really count on how much, the ways in which it's enriching the community. But I think one of the ways is that individuals, both teachers and students, have managed to find out more about their community, not just by taking courses, but because Mount Airy Learning Tree counts on going to different, is dependent on all the different buildings in our community. So getting someone to go to a new location, find out about a church or a business that they've never been to is really useful. One of the other unanticipated benefits was I think it's started many a career that teachers have gone into cane refinishing furniture or sewing because they found out about it, because they first learned about it in Mount Airy Learning Tree. And relationships have been built. I was really pleased when a teacher was was embarrassed to tell me that his new bride was someone he met in his class. And I just loved it. I thought that was the kind of thing that we ought to be making happen. So, and it's the unanticipated benefits from Mount Airy Learning Tree that I like a lot. When Mount Airy Learning Tree started, basically I could carry it around in a shoebox. It was everybody's registrations in one little box, and I used the West Mount Airy Neighbor's Office, but I could also carry it to my house when I wanted to work on it. And ultimately, for a little bit, did carry it to my house. And by that time we had another paid staff, and she had a key to my house, and she would come up and work too. In order to get the growth, we had just an incredible number of volunteers from the community who did all kinds of things. Like at one level they did the clerical work and were happy to come in and just do filing or writing over class lists, copying names over again and again before we got computerized, or helping distribute the catalog, because that is a real chore to get the catalog out to the community, or thinking about how to get funding, how to get costs down, how to get community support. As the board provided, people were happy to come be on the board and were just an invaluable help to getting, it was a community effort to get this all done. So we bounced from, that shoebox was pretty easy to carry, our first move, and when we got a computer, it made it a little harder to keep moving, and when we got a little more staff, it made it even harder to move, and we actually did survive many a move for Mount Airy Learning Tree. It's done very well in its current location and been there for many years, planted deep roots, and it is time that Mount Airy Learning Tree get to stay somewhere. So it's time for Mount Airy Learning Tree to buy its own building so that it can have a place to keep the computers and keep the staff, and so that the community will know where to find the offices. It would make that hunt for the classroom a little bit easier, because at least they can find the office. There are many people who did so much for Mount Airy Learning Tree that I don't want to forget anybody, but they're all in my mind, even if I can't remember their names. Like the woman who lived down the block, whose name I have forgotten, who would come in weekly and do the clerical work, or Byron Davis, who would do the same. I think the clerical work was hard for him, but he was always so willing to help. Or the minute the catalog came, Jessie Bertha, who just wrote a note and said, "I'd like to help you." And I called her up right away, and she's been helpful ever since, and supportive of Mount Airy Learning Tree, and even taught a course in elder hostel once. Or Bill Ewing, who arranged for the first printing of the catalog. I was kind of prepared to go mimeo it off, but 12,000 mimeographed copies would have been horrendous, and he came in and magically managed to arrange for free printing. Or John Wineland, who did the early bookkeeping, because he was the treasurer of West Mount Airy Neighbors and liked what we were doing, and so he kept track of the books, and then until he moved and Sue Beadle took over, and has just been this mainstay of the financial wizard for the community. There's so many people that I'm kind of forgetting them right now under the interview lights, but just so many people who played so many roles. Josh Middledorf, who's taught from the beginning, Sue Baldwin, who taught the whole time I was there after our first time, because she came in and said, I've been teaching elsewhere, but I want to teach with you. You know how to get the word out. So just people like that, and just getting to know people within the community. The hundreds and hundreds of people that you get to know well by doing this kind of thing, and people have been so helpful, supportive, creative, marvelous to get to know that way. There are many ways that Mount Airy Learning Tree has kind of exceeded my expectations by sheer numbers, that it's larger and serves more people and has more teachers and has more variety than I ever thought possible. But in some sense, I kind of imagined that or hoped for that. But one of the unintended things, one of the things I hadn't thought about, was how helpful Mount Airy Learning Tree is to someone who moves in the neighborhood. And that seems to be a purpose that it's filled wonderfully. People who are new to the community take a course, meet friends, teach a course because they're just developing a business, and it serves as the best integration to a community that a new person could have.